Hi, I'm Stephen Macht, and you're watching Rocking at the Movies with Shane Comley-White.
I'm Duncan MacLeod of the Clan MacLeod, born 400 years ago in the... well, no, not really. That was a TV show called Highlander. So, just listen to Rocking at the Movies with me, Adrian Paul, and Shane Comley-White, and you'll learn some interesting facts.
Hello and welcome, everybody. My name is Shane Comley-White, and you're with me at Rocking at the Movies. And today we have a special guest from one of the most interesting series that I love, which is the Highlander series. And I know that all of you know that. And our guest today has been on one of those episodes, and it's called The Sea Witch. And he played a role, a Russian drug lord, if you want to call it that. And his name is Stephen Macht. Stephen, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's a great honor to be able to speak to one of the villains that Duncan had to fight.
It's great to be with you. Thanks a lot. I'm sure we'll get into the intricacies of Alexei and perhaps what, came before him and what was spawned after.
I'm looking forward to hearing all the stories, if you remember all of them, because I know it was a little bit of a time ago, and I'm sure you've done amazing amount of work since then, because looking at your IMDb, I think you got about 107 titles under your belt, if not more.
It's 50 years. It's 50 years. I just a little précis. I was a PhD in dramatic literature.
Sure.
And I first wanted to be an actor, but when I went to New York in the late 60s, after graduating from Dartmouth College, I just couldn't get any work. So I decided I love my wife more than the craft of acting. So we got married, I raised a family, and went and got a PhD, an MA, an MFA in playwriting at Tufts, and a PhD in dramatic literature at Indiana University. And my PhD dissertation was the history of acting training at the oldest extant acting school in England, the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art. So I got a chance to go not only to train there as an American actor. I started in 1963, but I was called back because my mother got cancer and I spent time with her until she passed away. But after marriage and the PhD, I went back to England, trained, and wrote a book about all the acting methods that had been in England since the Delsarte method, where in the London Academy of Music was an opera school training actors, all the way up to the present in 1968 when I finished. And then I went on to teach at Smith College and the City University of New York in Queens from 70 to 75, and I built an acting career that finally blossomed to major roles at Stratford, Ontario Shakespeare Festival in Canada. And I was scouted off the stage there by Universal Scouts to come out to California and continue my TV and movie career. So with 3 children and my wife, we came to California in 1976. On a 1-year non-exclusive contract, which Universal really had. It was the last of star training programs. There was a cadre of young actors that these 2 women, great women, Eleanor Kilgallen and Monique James, brought to Universal and hand-fed parts into television and movies. And they did that with me for 3 years until that program ended. But by that time, my career had been launched. And I really, took off after that. So that's how I got out to California. That's how I began my career. Yeah.
So it's definitely not do your acting training and you think that you're going to get the amazing job and you're going to become well-known and all that. It's a long, hard road to get to where you are and what you've done as well.
Believe me, it was 13 years from the time I trained in England the first time and then had to go back because of my mother's illness so that was until 1975. So from 63 to 75, I labored in the fields. And then it was because of my performances in 75 that those two women, Universal Scouts and vice presidents of talent, saw me on the stage and brought me to California. And now, so since 76, when I actually came here, till 83, you figure it out. It's been, as they would say, I've had a chance to marinate in this business.
Yeah, I'm just starting out in the career or in the industry. It's been 5 years so far. I think from the beginning of COVID times, I didn't even dream of being in the acting world or the movie world. I can't act to save my life, so that's I'm on the other end of the spectrum. But to done in such a long time, that's something incredible. So congratulations on that part, and that's an inspiration to someone like me and many, many others as well.
Well, thank you.
How was it, or how did you get cast into Highlander? Obviously, I love Highlander. It's been one of the series that I've grown up my entire life watching. And I remember the episode where you are fighting on the ship and the tragedy happens and all that kind of stuff, or what happens to you as a character. But how did you get into Highlander?
Right. Well, the part that probably got the casting director interested in me was go back, and if you're fans sometime, and I get most residuals from this part, Stephen King's Graveyard Shift.
Yes.
Where I play a character called Warwick, who is the mill foreman.
Yeah.
I played that part in 1983. And in 1995, it was like 12 years later, and I had done a lot of work since then. That taste for sort of understated, raw, working class animal villain was developed there. I spent, and you'll get a sense of the kind of sort of method actor that I was. A friend of mine was the director of that. He was the production manager of Cagney and Lacey, and I had starred in that. And then this was his first directing. He asked me if I wanted to play the role of this guy. And when I first looked at it, I said, no way I'm going to play that guy. He's pure evil. He said, Stephen, you're going to be great in this. And I was simultaneously taking acting classes. Yeah. With the greatest teacher that you should read his book, Milton Katselas, Katselas.
Okay.
And Milton used to say to us, he'd say, Stephen, I want you to do this scene and that scene. I said, I don't want to do that. And he said, what the fuck is the matter with you? I know you better than you know you. What is this? An organ reject? And it's something in you says you shouldn't play it. Yeah. Says, do what I tell you to do, especially when this sense of, I'm not playing that. That means take a look deeper and investigate the shadow that's really preventing you from opening up a whole wealth of power.
Interesting.
And that was Warwick. And so I just said to my friend, I'm going to play that guy. I'll go. But I got to tell you this, I'm not going to associate with any of the members of the cast for the whole shoot, 15 weeks. He says, Stevie, you can't do that. They're going to hate you. I said, better. That's who the character is. And I went 10 days before and started hanging out in working class bars only with sort of low, middle to low class people. I was drinking with them, eating with them, and I lived that part for 12 to 15 weeks. I would never talk to any of the other actors. And I said, just tell them it doesn't have to do with anything personally with them. It's who I am. I'm just playing the guy. He says, they hate you, Stephen. I said, great, film it. So that was where I tasted the really shadow parts of who I am, who we all have. Milton's nudge to say, take a look, Stephen, take a look, because power is there. That's what I did. And so that powerful character of Warwick must have attracted years later the casting director to get me to offer me. It was an offer. You want to play Voshin? And I looked at it. I said, "Oh yeah, he's a sweetie. This guy compared to what I have played. It's much more refined, more an aristocrat. But I can find him in a different place, which is interesting. You want to get into that?"
Yes. Yeah, no, definitely, please, because I'd like to know how that character kind of merged with you, or how you merged with the character and actually portrayed him, because he was quite ruthless in the episode itself, where he all the refugees that he was trying to save and knock Duncan about those. And I always thought, like, that is such a horrible person. Like, why would Duncan ever be friends with that one? And
Well, that's the nexus of it. So when you looked at the background, they had been friends.
Yeah.
Had been friends. But what happened to Voshin was the Soviet Empire, which he was trained to live in the ideals of the Soviet Empire,
yes,
started to crack. And what he saw was the truth behind the ideals, the power that's there. And he decided that they were going to discard him sooner or later. And he decided, I'm going to become the essence, much like a modern Soviet oligarch.
Yes.
Today, I'm going to do that before the shit hits the fan. I'm going to be that power. So tellingly, it's always great for an actor to find one psychological gesture that sums up the character.
Yeah.
And you sort of got to it, beginning to it, in that scene where he comes out and Duncan is part of the Russian military, all in formation. And I come out to award him a medal. And not only award him the medal, but after talking with Tom Wright, the first time I didn't have a really guts to do it, but the second take I did, I kissed him right on the lips.
Okay.
And put the medal on. And for me, that psychological gesture was, I am going to destroy you. Know really intimately, smell the sense of evil, the total opposite of who you are.
That's incredible.
The opposite of love, truth, beauty, and justice. Hate, raw shadow, injustice, and the permission to lie, steal, cheat, and kill. You are looking at me and you think there was a response and it looked like it was funny in a way. Horrific humor. Bang. That summed up the essence of who my Voshin was. A guy who was in a way 10 steps ahead psychologically of where Duncan exists. And so even though the writing in that episode did not really flesh all that out, that's the subtext that I was writing on. And that's the emotional guts of the character who no villain calls himself a villain. There are wounds. There are personal defeats, personal horrors, personal sadness, personal anger that any person goes through. And the greatness of acting is that how did Voshin magnetize and pull all that stuff out of me? It pulled a lot of it, not all of it, because the writing didn't flesh out. Voshin was not one of the greater villains in Highlander history, but you got a taste of it. And some people didn't get it. Some people did get it.
I agree with you. I can say he wasn't the most obvious immortal, especially towards the end of the series and the actual franchise itself. But I would suggest, or I would even say that he gave you a taste of what kind of character Duncan was. So it kind of solidified the nature of Duncan and how he always wants to do something right rather than wrong. And I think you needed you as your character to bring that out so the audience could see us. So he's valuable. All of the characters are valuable.
It makes me happy that you say that, because the deeper a villain goes into the reality of what he's feeling, thinking, and doing,
yes,
it becomes much more of an antagonist so that the protagonist can show himself.
Yeah.
Because the protagonist then has to discover ways to defeat me. So when I say to him, I'm going to teach you something, and then the guards come in and I'm going to teach you something about what it is to be human, to be a real villain. I'm coming for a quickening, not just your head, but for everything you stand for all of it. That's what's at stake. Don't misunderstand me. And that was why, and you can find quotes. Adrian has quotes. He says, when he actually did it, it just shocked me. And that goes unnoticed in most of the criticism.
Yeah.
But that's okay, because it gave me fuel to go on with. That psychological gesture.
That's brilliant.
A kiss.
That's fantastic, though.
Unleashed a lot of stuff.
So, okay, going back to Duncan or Adrian, how did he react when you did that the first time? And on camera, obviously, reacted the way that we see, I'm assuming, but off camera, was it lots of jokes?
He didn't actually know. He didn't actually. I had said to Tom Wright, the director, listen, there's something I want to do. He said, what? I said, I'm going to kiss him. I'm going to kiss him. Right. I'm not only going to give him a medal, I'm going to kiss him. He said, why? I said, under the guise, in Russian folklore, a hug or a kiss is what seems to indicate camaraderie.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to use that, but it is not only a camaraderie, it is to say, we are comrades, and this is the life and death struggle we're in now. I love you because I can't wait to find the ways you're going to try to stop me. And he said, go, do it, Stephen, do it. I'm not telling you. So the first take came, and I just didn't have the car. He said, all right, stop. I went back. He says, come on, do it. And I did it. And Adrian didn't know it. And when I did it, and he went with it.
Yeah.
And after we talked a little bit about it, I don't think I really even, really knew the full horror, the full depth of what that was, what I was doing. It was instinct. But that's what a part can do. The part, think of it as each one of the parts that I played is like a chemical stimulus, or think of it as a magnet. The part is there, and it draws out of me what it wants. That part said to me, and I don't know where that came from. That part said to me, go for it, man. Just kiss him. See what he does. What's he gonna do? He will never expect this. And it'll place you as the villain, not only, but it will begin show in concrete terms what this whole dramatic action is about. It starts here, in the past. It's a flashback. So this has been going on for a while, right? Anyway, so so if it helps at all, talk about, and besides the fact of, I think, in Highlander history, the first quickening of not the sword cutting off the head, but a propeller.
Yes.
Of the ship. That was the first time that ever happened.
Yeah, exactly.
In the series.
It wasn't the normal, typical beheading from the actual opponent. It was a mistake kind of killing as well, in a way.
That's right.
By chance. So
Right, which he qualified me even more. Couldn't do it. He needed extra powers to accomplish that.
Exactly. Needed the little bit of mechanical.
There was something else operating. Maybe the arc of the universe was operating for him. And I hope that, believe me, as we talk, I hope that's true. Look at where we are now.
Yeah.
There are real villains out there.
No, definitely.
That's why I could go on and on about this. I did a little film, became a cult hit called Monster Squad.
Yes.
It became a cult hit. It fell in the toilet to begin with, but the kid who played the lead, Andre Gower, 10 years after, just believed in this film. He got a pirated VHS copy and went to all the film festivals, and people started loving it. And finally, the studio released a DVD, all of that. And I played, the cop, his father, who, as the one who helps him fight all the Disney monsters.
Yeah.
And when we go to monster cons and audiences see the film and they ask questions, they say to me, what do you think? I said, I used to say that was an idealized version. It's not the way life plays out. But what I begin to say now is each of us must reach into the idealized values of these Monster Squad, aka in my own head, the Duncan MacLeods. Because if you don't, the monsters that are out there, the Voshins, the Warwicks, the Rokoffs in Tarzan, they are gonna kill you.
I definitely agree. I'm going to say this as well. There was a massive inspiration for me during the lockdown. It was brutal for the whole world, but everyone always said to me, we're all in the same boat. But I had a saying of, fine, we're all in the same ocean, but all of our boats are different. Some are leaking, some are fantastic yachts and whatever else it is. I felt that I was in one of those leaking boats, and it was just sinking and sinking. And it pulled me back to watch the Highlanders again, because I grew up wanting to be the good-natured kind of person of what Duncan was, and to kind of see all of the villains that were out there as the different presidents that we had, the different viruses that we were dealing with, the horrible people that were telling us to stay at home and shut down the businesses that we had. So those were all of my villains at the time. So to have that show kind of reinforce things a different way, it allowed me to manage the situation that we're in. So thanks to you guys, I'm going to say quite bluntly, thanks to you guys, it was one of the saving graces that I went through at that time. And it got me into this industry, strangely enough. So
terrific. I think, that the old saying is, art is the mirror. It holds up the truth of what not only the social matrix is, but the grand ideas, the grand wisdom traditions that stand for truth, love, justice, and beauty. What are they up against? And how are you going to, what are you going to do about it? What side are you going to pick? Or are you going to stay asleep?
Like most people are.
You come to consciousness. Yeah. And part of the consciousness, part of becoming conscious is discovering where the villains lie in you. Where are they? And one of the great things about my career for me was I was able to channel a lot of the shadow parts of myself, find it, discover it, actually on stage, in the role, and experience it. That's not to say I don't do those things in life. But I'm quicker able to see them. And rather than blame somebody else for all the crap in my life or in our life, I see what's the difference. How far will I go and not do what they're doing? And how will I enter the fight? How will I become, in a way, a Duncan? I mean, we don't, in television and movies, is the melodramas, good guys and bad guys. For the most part, that's what Highlander was. But what's interesting in watching it is how far do the actors go on both sides in discovering they are a cause. They themselves have deep scars, and are using that. And how does Duncan confront that stuff in himself?
Yeah.
Are there moments of weakness? Are there moments of, I think that moment where I kissed him, he didn't know what to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to think about that. Anyway.
Okay. Here's another question. The fighting aspect of it. So I come from a martial arts background, and I'm running a stunt team here in South Africa, and I'm engrossed with how you, as an actor, had to go through all of the fighting training to pull off all the stunts and the fights that you did on set with, particularly with Highlander itself. So what did you go through?
Right. I think, first of all, I would never be able to do that now. I'm 83 years old. So I can't physically do that stuff anymore. When I was a much younger actor, I was an athlete. In school, I played semi-professional baseball. I swim to this day, water skier, all of that, and less and less. So the choreographing and Duncan was very helpful in all of that. He rehearsed all the moves with me, and whoever staged the fight, I can't remember who did it, saw that I could do certain things and not do other things. So I think we spent probably, on that one day of shooting of the one fight that we had, we probably spent, an hour or two off stage, going through the moves. And I think probably I was successful at some of it, and some of it I won. And the stunt guy was good enough to say, here's where let's use only these moves or those moves. And I would have to really look at it again to see how successful I think I was at it or not. But it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I do remember that my young son, who is now 42 years old, Jesse, and who is a singer-songwriter and a producer in his own, he came to the set during that time, and he enjoyed watching all of those, all of that stunt work.
Yeah.
Those were the times when I did all my stunts. As I grew older, I learned there was some stuff that other guys can do much better than I did. And I lost any ego that I needed to do my own stunts, especially in a movie, when I played an Indian warrior who tried to chase Charlton Heston's ass all over Wyoming in a picture called Mountain Men. Yeah. There was a lot of riding and steep riding and all kinds of stunts. And we spent 15 weeks. And from essentially a guy who was raised in Brooklyn, New York, and then in Mystic, Connecticut, I learned to ride and could do the final stunts all by myself. And that was probably the end of my doing a lot of the stunts until there was steep riding bareback down hills. It was stuff I couldn't do, and I finally, made some mistakes. People were laughing, and I was so embarrassed that after one of the days, I didn't even take off my makeup. I ran to the car and took me home, and the stunt guys who had not been called upon were in the bar.
Yeah.
And I started to walk by it, and I saw them, and I walked in with the whole Indian makeup, and they started clapping, and they said, "You asshole, don't you know we can do that stuff better than you do?" Why don't you guys ask us? I said, I can do that. He says, welcome to the world of movie making. We will stunt you. So Terry Leonard, who was a great, great stunt coordinator, started to stunt for me at that time. And I first learned that leave it to the really good stunt guys. They're going to make you absolutely look good. I have very funny stories that we won't get into that I did before I finally said to them, Terry's going to do it for me. It'll be much better for you, the cameraman. Anyway, that's a long, involved answer to say this was really sort of easy. And it was at the beginning of my career more, when was it? It was in 1995. So I was at that time, I was 53. I was born in 42, but I was still, physically capable. It's now 29 years since that time that we're talking. So anyway, that answers it.
No, look, when it comes to the stunts, I work in a couple of the local productions here, and some of the people they want to do the stunts, but they don't have any ability to do it. They don't know how to punch. They don't know how to kick. And to try train them to do that, it's almost like pulling your hair out because they say, I have to do it, but they can't. And then the director gets crossed because you can't teach them in such a short span of time. But so I've now starting to get a whole bunch of my stunt teammates to actually come and take over their roles just purely because they can work and do the job,
Good.
So it's great.
I agree with that mentality. I lost that ego on Mountain Men. Whenever I filmed, I lost
when you ran to the pub.
What am I trying? Who am I kidding? I need to do this stuff. You don't. There are some actors who are really very skilled at it, who can, and fine. Good for them.
Doesn't mean you have to, yeah.
No. If I can feel the other stuff that I've been talking about with you, that's the stuff of, I once played Max Schmeling in a movie opposite Bernie Casey. I played him opposite, Bernie played Joe Louis. And it was a boxing. Everybody said this is a boxing movie. Well, there were 3 scenes of boxing.
Yeah.
And I learned essentially how to do it, but it wasn't a boxing movie. It was more about the tragedy that happened to both Max Schmeling and Joe Louis in that period of the Nazi time. What were the forces that bore down upon became a friendship after the war was over? So, and I won an award for that. And, people used to say to me, well, boxer. I said that I'm not a boxer, but I knew enough to know that the heart of the movie was not in the boxing.
Yes.
And
so that's the thing. If you can sell the character and sell what you've actually meant to be doing, you don't need to be able to do all the different moves as if you are a boxer, because boxers can't act and most box. So everyone's got their place, So it's
right.
Tricky.
And I had a stunt guy for me in that too. So what can I tell you? It's a lot of fun, but when it gets injurious or when it looks stupid, let the guy who can really do it and who looks like you, shooting from the back, or the side, let him do it. It's only going to make you look better. Get rid of the ego that's involved in it.
Very good message for a lot of people that I've worked with as well. The ego needs to go.
It needs to go over a long arc of being in this business. The ego is only the first emotional impulse.
Yeah.
As I've gone older, and it doesn't mean that it doesn't come up for me time and again.
Always.
But I'll tell you a little story, and then we'll end it, or we see. I played a villain, and it's a semi-villain. The guy is Professor Gerard, opposite my son Gabriel, in the series Suits, which became a big hit.
Yes. And
Gabriel got me that part, and he became my director. Even though there were directors, he would say, "Dad, there's directors, but I'm the director for you when the scene's with you." And what I want you to do is, as I know you in your career and as my father, you are the strongest when you are silent. When you just look at me and say the words. So I'm going to tell him, take all the makeup off your face. I don't want any of that. I don't want acting. I want you to be who you are. And that's powerful. Now, this is after 45 years of a career. And I'm thinking to myself, my son is telling me this shit. He's absolutely right. And he said, I will call cut. Or if I don't, just keep repeating the lines in the scene. And the scene that we shot together was probably one of the more powerful scenes in my whole career. There was a stillness, a power. And I learned finally to let go of my ego. My son had transcended the father. He became the father to me, the teacher to me. And I became greater as a result.
Powerful. That's
it. And I didn't get it until that moment. But I'm saying you have to let the ego go.
Yeah.
So that the true you, that you maybe don't even know, shines through in silence. And that was what I got from him. Anyway.
I'm actually a little bit blown away by that, because playing alongside Harvey, obviously everyone knows who Harvey is from Suits, but that's actually your son. It must be so enriching at the same time as depends on who you are and what kind of relationship you have with your son or a family member. It could even be embarrassing, especially if you got it wrong. You don't want to let each other down. To be able to walk away from that, having him teach you enough that you can actually grow in a completely different way, that's something that every father, I would say, would be quite proud of that their child has achieved. Yeah,
I only wish it for every father or father to be able to come to a point where you gotta let go and understand that the son, the daughter, by giving them the space to speak truthfully to you, will only draw more out of you than you thought you had. I hope that's my greatest wish for beginning fathers and mothers likewise, that they be treated by their children and have the grace to allow it to happen.
Sorry, I'm a little bit blown away by that, because I knew you were on Suits. I just didn't put you guys together. I didn't actually realize that you were father and son. So well, wow, a little bit of an eye opener for us.
For me. And so all I'm saying is that, when I look over the arc, and I've touched on this a little bit with, Warwick.
Yes.
To Voshin, to this Rokov character, a Russian guy in Tarzan. And then coming, to even the part that I played in the soap opera, General Hospital.
Yes.
It started as a 6-month gig and it went for a year and a half. I played this guy, Trevor Lansing, who was a mob boss. Mm-hmm. And when I had played a soap opera character maybe 8 years before, I went to New York to try to revive my career, and I thought it was a step down. And I acted that way, and I was really crummy in the part. It went for 6 months, and that was it. Then, all the years later, it came back. They wanted me to play this part, and I thought, you know what? Here's an opportunity to really investigate every day, to get up in front of the camera, to take my swings as a baseball player, and to try to hit line drive, and to be me in that part. and let it come out. And I had some of the best times of my life doing it over, because I was learning like between 10 and 12 pages of dialogue every day to get up to do that. And simultaneously, on the days I didn't work, I was studying for a master's degree in Jewish studies and becoming a chaplain, a rung below a rabbi. And people would say to me, how can you learn all these lines and Hebrew? I said, you want to know something? Hebrew's more difficult. So this was, all I'm saying is the chance to be involved and to allow the character to percolate in me all of who I was. Milton Casellas, he called me into his home one time, he said, Stephen, you finally got it. You finally got it. This is the best work you've done. And you didn't think that you'd be able to do that, did you? You snobby asshole. He said, you have never been better.
That's fantastic. So you need someone to tell you like that, man.
Well, he was my teacher, and he was many of the people that you see on screen and have seen for the last 35 years. He was their teacher. He was really something else. He was connected.
Yeah.
And he knew who the human being was. And he would say, if you don't want to listen to me, get out of my class, throw a rock in LA and you'll hit an acting teacher. Meaning, I know I'm a doctor. I know you better than you know you. So try to do what I'm asking you to do. And he was right. He was really right. Anyway, so that.
He proved it, and definitely, like you mentioned earlier, Orphe, that you are going back home to possibly get an award of a Lifetime Achievement Award. Tell us a little bit more about that, if you don't mind.
What?
Can you tell us a little bit more about that? What it's like,
sure.
And where you're going?
Mystic, Connecticut is where my father died when I was 9, and we were living in Brooklyn, New York. He was a trial attorney for the National Labor Relations Board. He was a labor lawyer who tried to bring justice to the corporate system. At any rate, he passed away early, and we went home, and I lived with my grandfather. My mother went home to her paternal father, and I lived with my grandfather and my brother, my mother. 9 until I went away to school at Dartmouth. And then, she passed away in 1964. And my wife and I were married in a cancer ward in the hospital before she passed away.
Sure.
So from 50, I would say 50, I was 9. So from 51 to 63, 64, as I lived there in Mystic, Connecticut. And I'm a homegrown boy there. I went to grammar school and high school, and I never acted. I was a baseball player.
Okay.
And president of his class or whatever. And finally, I found my strength at Dartmouth in the theater, and went on, as I told you, to train in England and then shortcut. So when they asked me to come back the first time 2 years ago to this, it's a film festival that has been in operation for about 8 years. So 2 years ago, the 6th year, they asked me, and I just had something going on. And last year, I couldn't do it. There was family business. But this year, I thought, I'm going to go back. I still have 2 or 3 friends who live there. And so I'll see them. And I'm going to talk a lot about the things that I've talked with you about. Retrospect about what is it that the business has brought out in me. What are some of the contributions maybe I made that some people got, maybe not. But amusing time. And so I'm going to talk about a lot of these things that I've shared with you. because that's what I have discovered about myself. And it is an ongoing process. It's never over. I still have mileage left. I hope somebody reaches out and says, Stephen, we got a delicious villain or a great grandpa hero, whatever. But I'm even more ready now as time goes on.
Yeah.
With, I think, maybe a tad less ego involved. You know? I don't have to be the sniffer or anything. So, not family, I don't. Anyway.
So, you say you still got a whole bunch of mileage left, which is
I hope.
a lot
I hope
of people want to give up. So just keep going the best as you can, obviously. But now, do you do different things like conventions? Because earlier you're talking about you going to some of the conventions this coming year. Would you ever travel to South Africa for them?
Well, the one time I traveled to South Africa was for this Tarzan series. And that's way long ago. You know, that was in 1996. There was a guy who was a special effect. His name was John Buchler. He was special effects on a B movie that I made called Galaxina.
Yes.
The claim to fame was Dorothy Stratton, who was the playmate of the year who was killed. At any rate, he was the special effect guy. And we hit it up. And then he called me years later and he said, listen, I'm going to direct. I get a chance to direct an episode. And I want you to come and play this guy, Rokoff. Little did I know that a friend of mine who was in Graveyard Shift as my sort of right-hand guy, Andy Devoff, had played that character in the beginning. And then he either couldn't do it or whatever. I went down and I decided, sure, why not? It'll be fun. There were 2 episodes. And that trip from LA to Frankfurt and then on Air Namibia all the way to, oh my God, that was something else. But staying in Sun City was terrific. That was a lot of fun. My wife and I had a great time there, did a little safari, all of that, and the caves. And I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed that trip when we finally went to the Cape and then up, to see where the Indian Ocean hits the Atlantic. All of that was a terrific experience. And it afforded, it's one of the graces of being in this business was to go and discover a whole new land. So I much enjoyed that. And Buchler passed away, and we never really communicated. And I reached out to send his wife some thoughts about it, because you're asking me to do this brought back that trip to South Africa. When I reached out,
memories.
I want to thank you again. I know John passed away, but I'm going to speak about him in this interview that I'm doing with the South African podcast guy, and a visual. And I haven't heard back, but it doesn't matter. It gave me the opportunity to rethink where these parts fit in and how I think I might have developed a little bit as an actor. That's part of it. That I hope I've shared that with you.
No, Dev, your journey has actually been quite inspirational, if you want to call it that. It's something that a lot of people strive to do, and they never get an opportunity to actually do what you've done, and it's actually incredible. But yeah, so did you go down all the slides in Sun City, or weren't they built then at the time?
I remember somehow I didn't want it. I lived, I think, in the Cascades Hotel. I think not in the Palace, but I missed it. What I loved most was I started to eat stuff that I had never eaten. I mean, I ate alligator, and I asked my wife was there. She said, "What do you want?" And I said, "I'm going to have alligator." She said, "What?" And so I asked the server, "What does it taste like?"
Yeah.
He said, "It tastes most like impala." I thought to myself, Impala. We became hysterical. I've never had an Impala at any rate. I think I did have Impala, alligator, whatever it was. That was, and the dining room in the hotel was so elegant. It was a wonderful experience. We had a great time there. I didn't have time. I mean, I think I swam a little bit.
Yeah.
But I didn't, because of the shooting schedule. Suzanne stayed at the hotel more than I did.
Yeah.
But it was a highlight in terms of where, and a disastrous, on the Namibia Airlines coming back. I'm glad that we finally landed back in Frankfurt. There was, when I thought, I don't know if we're going to make it back. I think they had 2 planes in the whole Namibian Airlines. One of them, I mean, that was, the cost of the production company bringing actors to South Africa from LA, there were shortcuts. At any rate, it was still a wonderful experience for me.
So would you ever come back at the opportunity?
Sure, I would come back. I wouldn't come back with Namibia Airlines.
I don't even think it's around anymore, so don't worry about that.
Class, but I thought, and I would love to come back. And, I did not visit Johannesburg at the time because I was just really busy. And I would love to see the changes that have gone on in South Africa since I was there in
97.
1996.
96, 97.
So anyway, yes, sure, I would come back.
Okay. The reason why
I'm happy to visit you now. Right.
So the reason why I ask is because I'm quite involved in our local Comic-Con Africa convention that we have, and there's 2. There's a Cape Town one and a Johannesburg one, which is actually happening now in August. But yes. I'm quite connected with the organizers and all that, and to have someone, especially someone who's been in a lot of the horror franchises and the horror films, there's a big following for that.
Right.
Way that you could actually come through and
that would be great. I have an agent who does separate for this. His name is Dominic Mancini, Mancini. All you gotta do is Google him.
Yep.
He's a terrific guy because he is an agent for many stars who do this. He books them.
Yes.
Bigger names than I, who have done horror work through their careers, women and men, and he's a good guy to look up. But anything that you could dream up would go through him, and ultimately,
we'll
if the time is
if it happens,
energized enough, it's an arduous trip to get to Johannesburg from LA.
Yes, it is.
It's quite a. So
I think
I'm getting to the point. You can fly? Is that right?
Yep.
Wow. Well, that's a plus. At any rate, listen, really, I openly say, contact that guy, because you're going to find other people who are younger and as good, or if not more talented than me, and me as well. So let's see what happens.
Let me reach out to the organizers and see what we can try plan for next year. It would be something easy. It would be great to meet you in person as well. But before we get to that level, I'd like to know something about you, if you don't mind. If you had to give any kind of inspirational message to new actors, current actors, or anyone else in the industry, other than letting go of your ego, what would you suggest, or what would you advise them with? Words of wisdom.
That it is there is a process that I think about, and it's based in my background as part intellectual. I got a PhD in dramatic literature. And my center of interest was Aristotle's Poetics. And for many years, I taught playwriting structure. What's the difference between tragedy, comedy, and melodrama? And what I discovered, and then began to inculcate in my own theory, was the most sophisticated writing is in what we call tragedy. Why? Because imagine, here's the definition of it, imagine characters in action undergoing change. What does that mean? In tragedy, it means that the most human part of us, we are responsible for our own mistakes.
Yes.
We create them. We are responsible for our own mistakes of judgment. Those mistakes, those errors of judgment are what launch our lives, not only in the genre of tragedy, but in our lives. And the process of living is a process of discovering that how did you create your own mess? And so the arc of life for me imitated the arc of suffering, undergoing mistakes and not knowing, unconsciously making mistakes, and then discovering that I was responsible for my mistakes, becoming conscious, and then living in order to make a reversal and discover, oh my God, I did that. I can't blame anybody anymore. I have to repair the relationships I made because of the mistakes I made.
Yeah.
I have to, in action, do that. It's not good enough to say, I'm sorry. You must repair. You must find indeed what you did and repair that. That process leads to self-discovery. And it's awe-inspiring. It doesn't mean that it's ever over. That's why the Greeks said, count no man happy till he's dead. Because the same problems come up, hopefully, as you become more conscious and you go through the reversal of trying to blame everybody for what you did. You then become conscious and give them a space to be free of your shit. So my advice has to do with not only learning the craft, but discovering the process that is spiritually and psychologically a real undergoing of living, to find out that you are the cause of your own misery. And that it lies within your power to remedy that for you and all of those around you. And that's what great tragedy is about. That's what Hamlet's about. That's what Lear is about. That's what Tender Mercies, that Robert Duvall little movie about a drunken, country singer who discovers that he's really responsible for all the mistakes in his own life. And he tries to repair that. Anyway, that's every wisdom tradition has part of that discovery process in it, whether it be Catholic, Christian, Jewish, Muslim, it's all in there. But I found that acting part of my life also mirrored the religious tradition out of which I came and didn't really understand. And I saw it. So those two things coming together. And I'm saying to anybody who wants to be involved, not only in art, but in life, that idea that you are responsible and you can mend the mistakes in your life. That's the other advice. It runs tangentially to losing the ego, but I'm trying to articulate the process of it.
Yes.
More the process.
that definitely makes sense. You have to internalize before you can actually be the right kind of person externally as well. And if you can't find your inner person and fix all the errors that you've done as well, you're going to be a mess for the rest of your life. So, yeah.
That you will be an effect.
Yes.
You will be unconscious. And you constantly say, why did this happen? Why? Yeah, you did it.
Exactly. I agree with you with that fully. It's everything that cause one way or the other. It's not just a random thing that happened.
It takes courage. It takes courage to admit it. And it's not a perfect process. It isn't. As I said, I hope I can continue learning, from all those around me as I continue my life. And let that, if I have another round in me as an actor, either as a good guy or as a bad guy, let that learning dictate how I will approach my art.
I must say you are quite an inspiration. So thank you. I really, really do appreciate your words, because it's not every day that you hear someone who has, how can I say, more depth or insight to life when it comes to acting. A lot of the people just say, I just want to act and just be the best that I can be and all that. But you've got a lot more depth. So I appreciate that. And I'm going to take a lot of it to heart as well.
Well, I appreciate your reaching out to me. Who would have thought some guy in South Africa wants to know about Alexei Voshin? Okay. You want to know about that? I'll tell you about Alexei. At any rate,
no idea what following
is. And I appreciate your invitation. And it's with what we have done that I've tried to reach back out to you to say thank you for your invitation.